Okay. Secondary signs. What do people see? So what's this thing here?
Appendicitis.
Ah, and someone said appendicolith. Awesome. So psoas, iliac vessels, and you can see just a little of the shadowing of the appendicolith there.
Yeah, here's the shadow.
But now more convincing, right?
It's interesting this one is probably from a measurement standpoint may not meet criteria in other respects.
And an example of like, so here's the appendix in what is probably a normal state. So, you know, there's people with, I don't think any definitive evidence, but it kind of makes sense holistically that an appendicolith may lead to appendicitis by causing like local wall pressure and necrosis and allowing bacteria to access the submucosal layers. And in this example, you see what looks like a pretty normal appendix here, and then a rim of inflamed fat here, and what is the transition point between the two is that stone within the appendix. Okay, what's this? Awesome. This?
Fine.
Okay. This here? Nice. And do you guys see the appendix? Okay, good. Lymph nodes. It's not that common to see these size lymph nodes lying over the psoas, right? With this little rim of hot fat around some of them that makes you more convinced instead of lymphadenopathy, maybe this is lymphadenitis. So that would be an example of finding mesenteric nodes, which this could be mesenteric adenitis on its own, or this could be connected with appendicitis. Okay, now we're using a different probe. We're scanning the bladder. And what are some findings we're seeing? Free fluid, yes. So deep to the bladder, we've got a few pockets of free fluid. This is likely the rectum, and then a wedge of free fluid there. And then I think this is a female, a prepubertal female, because I think this is the prepubertal uterus. So, what's this? And this one's an example. We're going through like the spectrum of appendicitis and going to have a bunch more soon that are about perforation. For me, one of the things that's really useful is like if I have a really hard time bringing the psoas up to the peritoneum, if there's all this stuff in the way and I'm like, where's the psoas? It's hard for me to see it. I'm pushing really hard. The kid's trying to punch me because of how hard I'm pushing, and I still can't get a nicely defined psoas. There's just so much wall edema. There's so much inflammatory junk going on in the right lower quadrant, and those things really push you towards, you know, this patient is likely perforated. So people are probably seeing the clear target here. Swimming in. Free fluid, right? Is that free fluid clear or is it turbid? And maybe there's a little bit of turbidity, but
I think a lot of that's just
yeah, then down here we're getting back into bowel. But the fluid just around it, so you do have this little bit of a haze coming down, but you see how the haze like stops at a certain point coming down? So that's actually like reverberation that we don't normally see in the bowel because we don't normally have such a great echo transmitter like this free fluid. So that's just little bits of ping-ponging of signal within these different fascial planes that's getting reverberated down, but then stopping at a point, and then you've got dark fluid. So not the world's most turbid fluid. And then what's going on here with all this stuff? What is all this? Could be ileus. Kind of has a bit of a not so convincing for bowel appearance. So I don't know for sure. These are the ones where things get tricky. But this is also what a phlegmon can look like at the start. These like mucosal accumulations of somewhat organized inflammatory debris that aren't, they're kind of like a sterile inflammatory mass instead of being a true abscess. So almost like there's walls of septations and fibrinous material beginning to accumulate. Or it's really sick bowel. I have a hard time telling the two apart. Okay, let's start with the still image. What's this? Yeah, iliac vessels. This? Could that be the appendix?
Kind of like on the right, yes, on the left.
So I think it's terminal ileum, making the jump over. And I think that just out of like experience, I guess. And then this. Yeah, so I look at it and I say, like, is that within the cecum? Is it free? I can't really tell. And then I'll let the clip play. I get more convinced that I think it's turbid, free fluid. What do you guys think about the bowel wall itself? Yeah, it's bright, it's thick. And do you see any peristalsis? So that's kind of the sick bowel wall inflammation in the area appearance that often appendicitis will also produce. And then having larger amounts of free fluid is more predictive of heading towards perforation. Having that fluid become more turbid is more predictive of perforation.
You also,
like this as well.
Yeah.
You also get the inside the bowel itself, like you get the sense that there's like that almost like crystal or snowball kind of appearance too. Which I don't know if that's like
these echoes that
like
just tinkle
just
around.
like stuff that's just been sitting there a long time, you know, like when you see an aliens. Like this.
And then this one was, this is not the kind of clip that I want to teach, like, hey, go out and look for this stuff, because this is the really rare case. Yeah, this was a 14 or 15-year-old who came in and I got called to go see, I was on West emergently because she was in altered mental status with her parents saying, she's drank a whole bunch of Benadryl. And, you know, you run in and she's got a distended abdomen and she's really like out of it and she can't answer any of your questions. And the family says, well, she's been having abdominal pain and constipation for a couple weeks and she's been taking more and more Benadryl to try to deal with the pain. So the true story is she hasn't actually taken that much Benadryl. The parents just found her in bed looking terrible with a bottle of Benadryl next to her. She was a missed perf dappy, where like probably when she started to complain about pain 2 weeks ago was when she had perforated. And she had basically ascites from pus, which is what's going on here. I don't believe this fluid is actually contained within bowel walls. I think it's all free. She had a sodium of 115. She was sick. She had a long ICU stay. She developed ARDS. Like the stuff you don't see much of in the developed world with appendicitis. So just to try to get everything in the continuum on there. And that kind of like unorganized, turbid, free fluid is one type of way that fluid accumulates. Organized is another. So the start of this clip, what do we got? Bladder. He just showed me this. I might be like, what's up with that person's big, bulky, torsed ovary? But it and this one here are the way that collections can organize. You know, you get those perforated cases where they get like serial exams of their collections, and often these are the kinds of collections they're watching shrink over time. Multiloculated, almost polycystic appearing structures.